Well, hello friends, Mark Holmes here, and as always, thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, this literally does not work. Let's get open for business here, and let's wake up the football gods. Wake up, guys. You know, I try not to let things get to me, you know? And there's some of you out there that no matter what happens with the Dallas Cowboys, you're going to still say it is the worst thing in the world. The Cowboys suck. They can't compete. The general manager is awful. Our quarterback stinks. Zeke Elliott's a bad guy. Tyron Smith can't stay healthy. You know, if it were up to some of you guys, literally, I don't know that there's any players in the NFL that would be good enough in your mind for them to play for you. But I get sick and tired of all of this hate that is out there about the Cowboys and about my quarterback, where you've got this thing stuck in your head that you don't actually see numbers and facts and stats, and I probably shouldn't even try. But see, it's people who go through and post stuff like this that is the difference of the perception. Because if you say something enough times, sooner or later people believe it. Because it's like, oh, I heard that and it must be true. Well, not everything you hear on the internet is true. So I ask you to investigate, look at the numbers, and make your own decision. Don't just go by what somebody else says. You know, I may be 100% wrong. But I'm going to give you numbers and things because there's so many people that look for the glory days of Tony Romo, you know, because that guy was the greatest quarterback ever. And he got robbed at having a Super Bowl because Dak came in and stunk up the place. Tony Romo definitely would have won a couple Super Bowls with the talent around him because that's the narrative that's out there. That, you know, we shouldn't pay our quarterback because he's a bum. And it's not just the Cowboy fans. It's because it's the narrative you get from the talking heads. And so this is a true statement here. That this was posted on my Facebook page, Cowboy Joe Boo. That Dak Prescott's last 5 games, this was not his last 5 games. This was 5-game stretch where we ended up having new players, Scott Linehan, and if you think that Scott Linehan wasn't a lot of the problem, how come Scott Linehan in this age of retreads hasn't gotten a job with anybody? Scott Linehan, who couldn't win with the greatest show on turf. The greatest show on turf went under the turf. The guy who had Randy Moss with Minnesota Vikings couldn't do anything with that guy. Went to the Lions, was part of that 0-16, but for whatever reason we had him here figuring that he's the answer. And maybe had we not had Scott Linehan with Tony Romo, maybe things would have been different there. But understand, our offense, 1, is a run-first offense, and 2, had a Stone Age coach coaching. And these numbers were bad. I'll give you that. Dak Prescott's last 5 games, this was during that stretch, 34 attempts, 181 yards. 30 attempts, 179 yards. 29 attempts, 170 yards. 25 attempts, 160. 34 attempts, 168. Yeah. That was true. That was true. But then, I just blew that off. Just didn't even pay attention to it. But then, I started watching Speak for Yourself.
Rock and Wiley, joined now by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth. Time now for a big story. Let's move to Dallas. Where some people are speculating that Zeke Elliott's days powering the Cowboys offense could actually be numbered. Stephen Jones has been heaping praise on Dallas's newest running back, 4th rounder Tony Pollard, and Dallas will soon be faced with some tough choices about who to build around going forward with both Dak and Zeke coming up for new contracts over the next couple of seasons. All right, they seem to be indicating that they can move on from Zeke a lot easier than they can from Dak. Mm-hmm. And I would just caution everybody not to overreact to Todd Gurley's injury and the way he performed in the playoffs this past season. Running backs have been devalued. Now it seems like they're being devalued even more. I think it would be a bit of a mistake to prioritize Dak over Zeke.
Well, I think we're having two conversations, one in the now and one 2 years from now when this decision has to be made. But once again, Stephen Jones is keeping perspective, and he's keeping the position and the value of the position in mind. I'm with Stephen Jones. I'm with whatever we're starting to feel of the choice of quarterback over running back, no matter how great the running back is. That's just how the game's played. As you said, the running back's devalued. But don't take me on my own words. Let's just look at last year in the top 10 rushers in the NFL. You know how many of those guys even made the playoffs of the top 10? Only 3. Then you can say, oh, that was just an anomaly 1 year. No, let's look all-time. NFL all-time rushing leaders, the top 10. How many of those guys actually turned those yardage and performances and touchdowns into championships? And championships. Less than half. 4 of the top 10 rushers forever, all time. My point is, if you just study the game, and from even being on the field, it's just easier. I'm not saying easier to find a stud at running back than it is to find a stud at quarterback. When you got somebody who looks like they could play the part at quarterback, you got to marry him.
This to me is pretty simple. You know, it's never easy. It is simple type of thing.
Here it comes.
And the reason it's simple is because you're talking about long money over short money. Paying a running back is short money. The shelf life is proven to be short. The guys get beat up. They don't last very long. And I think today's game, the way they protect the quarterback, the way they create every rule for the quarterback to be successful, the long money is at quarterback. And I will tell you this, it's always better, always in this league, to be proactive when it comes to paying guys. If you find and target a guy that you think can be that, then you have to be proactive in targeting that guy. And I will say this, the quarterback position now, where you used to walk in and start hitting your prime at about 27, you're in your 30s before you start hitting your prime.
Yes.
So the length of that deal for a quarterback, I mean, we see Roethlisberger just re-signed. You know, Rivers is going to re-sign. He's 37, right? We see Breeze playing into his, you know, into his 40s. We see
names, all these guys you're rattling off.
Yeah.
I haven't heard you say Dak yet, but go ahead.
Well, Dak.
There we go. Oh, you know, this is the crap that drives me freaking crazy. Because, like, guys like this, you know, they'll say, oh, well, you know, Jared Goff, you got to pay him. You got Carson Wentz, who can't seem to make it through a season. Because, you know what? When you go through, you know, let's go through some of these numbers, because here's the thing. Let's take the playoff game against the Rams. The idiots out there will say, well, Dak Prescott didn't perform. Dak Prescott let our team down. But I want you to take a look at something over in here, which is kind of interesting. When we look at the numbers, Dak Prescott, nothing over the top. 20 of 32, 266 yards, 1 TD, no interceptions. 83 QBR. Nothing special, I agree with you, but that's playoffs on the road, right? But take a look at Jared Goff's numbers, because Jared Goff, he's head and shoulders above Dak Prescott. You don't hear any complaints about him not showing up or him having problems. You know, even though you looked at the first year of him playing and he didn't look like an NFL quarterback. You looked at him the second half of the season and his numbers went downhill. And in fact, in the playoffs against the Cowboys, he was 15 of 28 for 186 yards, no touchdowns. Granted, I'm not saying that Dak played great. He didn't lose the game. What lost the game for us was Zeke Elliott only had 47 yards to C.J. Anderson having 123 yards, and Todd Gurley having 115 yards. And when a team can run that much on you, you're not going to get very many opportunities to score the damn ball. So, okay, I'll give you that. All right. Let's go on a little more here, because I do this not to sully the name of others. But let's take, because everybody says we had Tony Romo. We've been blowing people away. We would have been blowing people away with Tony Romo. Because in Tony Romo's playoff career, the 6 games he played in, a 61.6 completion percentage, 1,316 yards, which comes out to about 219 yards a game. Yard per completion, 7.1, and is 2-4 in the playoffs. It's a 93 QBR. Just for the sake of argument, humor me. My quarterback, Dak Prescott, in half of the games, 794 yards to Tony Romo's 1,300. If you double that, that's almost 300 yards more than what Tony Romo does. Okay. Touchdown-wise, if you double it, that's Dak having 2 more touchdowns than Tony Romo had in the playoffs. Completion percentage, Dak Prescott has 3 points higher in playoffs than Tony Romo. Yards per attempt, 7.1 to Tony Romo's, 7.4. No, I'm sorry. Yard per attempt, 7.7 to Tony Romo's 7.1. And I'm not, and don't do it. Don't give me the hate. I'm not looking for hate from you guys about Tony Romo. Tony Romo was a great quarterback. And the reason I'm comparing the two is because of the crap that you guys seem to have stuck in your head about my quarterback, Dak Prescott, that he's a dink and dunker. And looking at that guy who posted those numbers of those 5 games, and I'll give you 5 games that was a bad stretch. I'll give you that. But look at Carson Wentz had a bad stretch his first year. Jared Goff had a bad stretch his first year, as well as the second half of last year. Because after those games right there, let's take the second half of the season, where against Tennessee, 243, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 7.8 per completion. Against, mind you, Tennessee was a playoff team. Philadelphia, the world champions, 270 yards, 7.5 yards per completion, touchdown, no interceptions. World champions. Atlanta on the road, well, they sucked. Brethren, your team sucked. Still, 208, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Against the Washington Redskins, who still had playoff hopes, 289 yards, 9.3 per completion, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Against New Orleans, the team that should have been in the Super Bowl winning it had they not been screwed by the officials. We understand that one as Cowboy fans. 249 yards and a TD. And he went against Demario Davis, the one-man wrecking crew that I wanted in Dallas. Again, another playoff team. Philadelphia Eagles, 455 yards, 3 TDs, 8.4. That's against the world champions that were also in the playoffs. Indianapolis Colts, well, that was a bad game. 206, 5.3, no touchdowns, although our fullback had a short touchdown that he did drop. Tampa Bay, well, we know they sucked, but they could light up the ball. 161 yards. I'll give you that one. And against the New York stinking Giants, with, mind you, without Zeke Elliott, 387 yards, 4 TDs. So the course of the last half of the season, averaged 278 yards per game, a 102 QBR, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So when you post crap like those 5 games, tell the whole story and post the other half, which shows where he improved, where he got better. Because if we were to take that 8-game stretch where we got Amari Cooper, where the offensive line started getting more stable, where they started getting into a groove, where they went 7-2, or is it 7-9? No. Wait a minute. Wait. They won 6 of the last 8. Am I right on that? 6 of the last 8 plus the playoff games. So 7-2. Yeah, or so you know what I'm talking about. Okay? They were one of the hottest teams the second half of the season. Sorry, I'm getting old and dementia setting in. But if those same parameters were in place, he would have had over 4,444 yards, 24 TDs, along with 8 rushing TDs, and only 6 interceptions. So we're only talking about a guy who's only been through 3 years in the NFL. Maybe, just maybe, we ought to at least give him some time and give him a chance instead of constantly saying he sucks, he's bad, he's a dink and dunker. Let's look at the numbers. Let's actually look at what he has accomplished. The start of his career, no interceptions record. 14 comeback victories. Tony Romo in his 10 years had 28. Roger Staubach had 23. Troy Aikman had 21. You don't think he's not gonna blow those things away? But then again, some of you guys are like talking to the brick wall. I'm Mark Holmes, and I'm trying to at least set the record straight. And I'll see you guys soon.